What I'm experiencing today is really an appreciation for the principle, one of the basic tenets of the Baha'i faith, which is unity and diversity. And we have such diversity in this room, yet we are really striving to focus on our commonalities, to focus on the betterment of the planet as our heartfelt concern and passion, and to look for that common area that drives us and moves us forward. I'd like to share just a little bit some of the perspectives of the Baha'i faith, and then I'll talk about some of the action things that we do. And I'm going to contextualize this in this issue of climate change as a moral issue. Obviously, the Baha'i faith does many things, but I'd like to share a little bit about our learning on engaging in this subject of climate change as a moral issue. One of the things that Baha'u'llah, the Prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, introduces to us is this idea of the earth as one country and mankind its citizens. And he encourages us to let your vision be world-embracing rather than confined to your own self. These two concepts take us to a space where we're no longer necessarily acting nationally, but really thinking about what it is to be part of one community, one global community, one common humanity with one common future. And when we think about climate change and that challenge that it represents, it's a global problem that requires a global solution. And it's a space that we're going to have to learn to engage in, because this idea of the global solidarity and sort of the oneness of humankind is going to require new expressions of capabilities that are within humanity that we may not have much experience with, such as global governance. And if there's ever going to be something that stretches our capacity as humanity, it's going to be learning to cede our national interests and other interests for the collective well-being and survival of the planet. So the preservation and conservation of the environment is considered a sacred obligation of all peoples for the protection of the earth and its resources for future generations. Baha'u'llah writes that nature is God's will and is its expression in and through the contingent world. And again, in the Baha'i writings, we find this thought that we cannot segregate the human heart from the environment outside us and say that once one of these is reformed, everything will be improved. For man is organic with the world. His inner life molds the environment and is itself also deeply affected by it. The one acts upon the other, and every abiding change in the life of man is the result of these mutual reactions. So one of the things that we're learning as a Baha'i community as we think about putting teachings into action, because really that is what our primary objective is to figure out how to translate that which has been revealed in Scripture into action. Make it meaningful, make it real, make it visible, make it tangible. And in fact, Baha'u'llah encourages the Baha'is. He says, be anxiously concerned with the needs of the age you live in and center your deliberations on its exigencies and requirements. So as a Baha'i, I'm thinking, what are those needs? What are those burning issues? And clearly climate change has emerged as one. So as a person of faith, I have a moral obligation to think through, what does faith have to contribute? So what the Baha'i community is learning to do, and I'd like to share with you just a little bit how we embrace the whole concept of our own development as a community, as well as our engagement in social action, is to participate in a very deliberate and systematic learning process of action, reflection, and consultation, all in the light of spiritual teachings. So wherever you are in the world, there are some 6 million Baha'is in 180 countries around the world. This notion of learning to apply Scripture and teaching in the context of a framework for action is what every Baha'i is engaged in. But there's a couple of things that really help to shape and appreciate why we're doing that. First of all, it's an understanding and a belief that every single human being has been created to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. There's a directionality, there's a purpose, there's an intent. And there's a recognition that every single human being has the right to be a protagonist in that process. Irrespective of their wealth, their education, their physical location on the planet, they're all connected to that same aspiration. So with an outward-looking orientation, when the Baha'is engage in their community work and with their thinking, it is really with that spirit of an outward-looking orientation to participate and to engage others, people of faith, people of no faith, just people, to create and to engage together. It is a deliberate process of learning, which invokes a spirit of humility. It recognizes that we don't have all of the answers, but that collectively we can take action to gain capacity to solve humanity's problems. It is about service, and it is about service born out of a love for his creation, for God's creation. It is a service for love of humanity, and it is a process of individual and collective transformation that happens hand in hand. I cannot seek to transform myself and become a better person if I'm not engaged in service to the betterment of the world. So it is engaging in service that also allows me to enhance and improve myself as an individual. So with that said, we have 4 core activities that the Baha'is around the world are engaged in. The first is really a process of participatory learning and action. We call it a study circle. This is where people get together to study the creative word and then to reflect on its application in light of the needs and exigencies of the community where they live. That is a systematic and regular process that is happening at a neighborhood level in thousands of communities around the world. The question of how the environment fits into that, to give you a sense, there is a core curriculum that we do work with globally around that subject. And recently, in November of last year, the Alliance of Religions and Conservation invited all of the major faiths to consider a 7-year intergenerational plan on climate change. The Baha'i International Community's response to that was to take up that challenge and, in fact, to commit to developing materials related to action to safeguard the environment that would be delivered globally through this mechanism of the Institute. The second of these core activities are what we refer to as devotional gatherings. It's a space for devotion, for prayer, meditation, and reflection, because that really lies at the heart of spiritual life. They're open to all. They invite poetry, for those who are interested in poetry, the scriptures of all of the sacred texts, music, the arts. It will look and feel different in whatever community you are in the world. But the notion is that we are collectively worshiping under that spirit of the oneness of God. The idea is that we can pray for peace and justice, we can deepen our appreciation of grace, our attitude of detachment, our reliance on God, our contentment, our submission to his will. That becomes a primary focus. The third and fourth areas of engagement really are about children and junior youth. And again, it's with an outward-looking orientation to engage children in activities that are of spiritual, moral character development. And clearly there is a need to educate our children and impart into them a love of humanity, a profound respect for nature and the environment in all of its diversity, and a love of knowledge, both material and spiritual. Because it's going to be through science and religion and the harmony of those two by which we can find the solutions to help contribute to the advancement of civilization. In like manner, focusing on junior youth, that age group of sort of 11 to 15, is really important because that's where the moral foundations really lock in. If you don't got it by the time you're 15, you're probably not going to get it. So really working with junior youth to help them appreciate their role as protagonists of building a better world and the moral obligation and the spiritual underpinnings by which that process takes hold is an essential component to our plan of action.